Good morning, afternoon, and evening. Welcome back to the Liberal Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Bodio and with me, I have Kaylie Horowitz.
Hello. Let's roll for initiative.
And new challengers approaching. We have finally done it. We've murdered Gibby and gotten him out of here.
You told me we just fired him.
Yeah,
No.
Editor Gibby, play like something scary and death sounding. I don't know.
I thought he's dead. How could he do that from the grave?
Because I own him. His soul is mine.
Oh, God.
Like Shang Tsung, dude.
I was going to say, is this like a Yu-Gi-Oh card? Like, what's happening
He's in
here?
the Shadow Realm, dude.
He's in the Shadow Realm.
Bodio just has Speaks with Dead on tap. Constantly hitting that button.
She's keeping us on brand, dude. I love it.
Just ring up your editor on demand, even from across dimensions. It's fine.
We have with us two amazing, wonderful writers of The Party. Go check it out on YouTube. We have Geneva Willis.
Hello. Hi, guys.
And we also have Tori Chancellor.
Salutations.
Damn, she hit it with the professional stuff. I love it, dude.
We've replaced Gibby temporarily. Yeah, no, we realized Gibby's been in a bit of a move, and we went, well, if we don't have one nerd at the table, we can bring two more nerd friends.
Hell yeah.
Also tied to our undergrad media department. So we
That is
got two for the
correct.
price of one today. Yay!
And that's what we call a BOGO.
Yes.
We have found out in some weird act of serendipity that we all went to the same college.
Whoa.
And Kaylie and I had never met Tori. We just totally missed her. I was at Auburn for 5
Because
years.
it's funny how you could just get plugged into different groups and just not
Right.
overlap.
Everybody
and,
always assumes that like the media and the theater kids, yeah, they know each. No, the media kids are locked in their own dungeon, and so are the theater kids.
Can I actually tell the story of how I first interacted with Geneva? Because it honestly was,
Yes.
it was very, it kind of moved my life in a great direction. And I say that because I really got it in my head that I wanted to graduate in 3 years because I always wanted to move to Los Angeles and like start my career as soon as possible. Like I was that kid who just wanted to just like sandwich it in. And I was like still like an underclassman and trying to get the media classes I needed to graduate. I showed up to the first day of visual media studies on the wait list. And I was like, I just need one person to drop out of this class. And if I don't get into this class at this semester, the domino effect will go and I won't be able to do what I need to do.
Those
and
classes are
graduate in 3 years.
notoriously like, we take 15 people and we're this many hours, so if you have something that overlaps, tough tits. Try again next year.
Yes. I walk in, I see Geneva, who I think we had maybe had like 1 or 2 prior conversations. And I was like, oh, hi, how's it going? Welcome back from summer. And Geneva's like, I just think like my course load is just too much this semester. And I'm considering dropping it. And I'm like, drop it. Drop the class. Like not knowing Geneva at all as a person. And Geneva dropped that class. I took her place. And then I was able to just complete my track. And that would not have happened without her.
yeah.
What an incredible sacrifice.
Well, for context, for me to say this might be too much was saying a lot because my normal course load was 20 plus hours.
Yeah, Geneva, superstar she is, was out here like, let me double major. That won't kill anybody. Let's do
Would
that.
you like a major, or would you like to double it and give it to the next person?
I became very good friends with the dean's office.
Yeah.
No, because I had to constantly like hit them up every semester. Like, I promise I won't die. Let me take more hours.
I know what I'm doing, please. I don't like it, but I have it under control. It's fine.
I promise you 4 hours of my course load is rolling around on the floor in the theater building. There's no papers attached to it.
Okay.
So the second part of the story is she did that. We really never overlapped again. But when you move out here and you're new to LA, to Los Angeles, you really just latch on to just like anybody that you have like a little bit of contact, like a little bit of contact with, because you just don't know what to
Sure.
do. And so when Geneva got her first job as a post PA on The Crossing, she was living in Anaheim at the time. I'm sorry I'm telling this story for you, but I remember every detail like it was yesterday.
I remember it like it was
She
yesterday.
called me and was like, listen, I'm living in Anaheim and I don't have a place to stay in the city. Is there any way I can just use like the first week to crash with you? And part of me was like, I didn't say this, but I was like, I don't know, dude. Like, I just don't know her very well. And then I got transported back to that moment of, remember when Geneva created the whole domino effect for how you were able to stay on your life's plan track? And then I was
This
like,
is
you know
the
what?
repayment.
Yeah. I was like, get on out here. We're going to set you up a blow-up mattress in my living room.
Hell yeah.
How the turntables.
How the
Have
turntables.
turned.
Geneva might not have known the second part of that story.
I think I thought because I was close. So we have a mutual friend who I constantly used in my show that I did for Eagle Eye TV. Shout out on my sweatshirt.
Hey.
We are not a visual podcast, but yeah.
Yeah. So I think in my head, I thought we were closer because we had Anna connecting us.
Listen, we were, I think I'm just like a skeptical person who's just like, I don't know. You were always
Stranger
sweet
danger.
and-
Stranger danger.
Listen, this was 5 years ago. We have used the 5 year, no, I'm sorry, this was almost 6 years ago. We have used the 6 years in between then and now to become, she is one of my best friends. So like, this was, you know, things have definitely escalated to a different place of emotional connectivity.
We're now in constant contact on an hourly basis.
That is correct.
What a wonderful thing 6 years can do. Y'all got brought together as closer friends, and Ian and I finally agreed when we're gonna get married.
Okay, but can I tell you a story? I remember though, like freshman, sophomore year, and like this is why I'm like so thrilled for y'all, because I remember Kaylie being like, basically to the effect of like, I don't know, is this ever gonna happen?
Oh my god.
And then I remember telling her like, no one who is a sophomore has their brain cooked. Just give him time, and time has happened.
We don't gain sentience as humans until we're 25, okay?
Whoa,
Like,
sentience? It's that it's
Sentience.
like that?
Yeah.
truly, I don't think I had my first three-dimensional comprehensive thought until I turned 25 years old.
They always joke like it's at some point in like first grade, you're playing out on the playground and suddenly you start asking questions about who you are and how you got there and what things are made of. But no, that's just the first step, like the true self-aware sentience. Exactly. It's some point in your mid-20s when you're going, what is the point of this? Really and truly. And then the secrets of the universe unlock after that.
I do want to speak on Tori, since you didn't grow up in Auburn University theater. Every weird thing Geneva's ever mentioned for the three kids who have gone through 3 separate levels of Auburn AU theater, I would like to corroborate everything she's ever said. It's all true.
It's all true.
It's all honest.
It is a cult.
Auburn University theater is a beautiful, wonderful, strange, fucked up state of reality.
I know for a fact that Chase is watching, so I was like, how much can I say that won't get back to certain people?
It's a weird place. I love it to death. I love it more than anything I've ever done.
It's weird in a very good way.
Yes.
Listen,
love it
I
dearly.
love the stories as not having been an active participant, so those stories keep me young, is all I'll have to say.
That's always like, it's the unfortunate when you're within the department, it's hard to make friends outside of it, but when you do, those are the connections that like they tighten, because they always want to know what happened this week, what happened at this week's party, what happened after this opening. You gotta fill me in, because something always happens. Something advances the plot of whatever story threads have been running, and it's that, okay, here's the update.
Well, I didn't realize how unusual it was that we were all so like plugged into each other's lives in the theater major, because like if we weren't in classes, we were in a show, we were in the green room, we were socializing together. And then like I would go and talk to like media people, and they'd be like, I've been in the same major as this dude for 3 years. I've never talked to him. And I'd be like, what? You don't know you don't know their alcohol limits,
know
and
their tolerance, their deepest fears, their dreams, their wishes.
You don't know how their mother said something 7 years ago and it still rings in their brain every day.
Yeah, the bonds are just not there. And I think it's just because we don't go through enough hardships. Like, I think you guys are trauma bonded, right? Like in the theater.
Yeah, but it's all self-imposed trauma.
Some of it is, but we do have a sad day in BFA.
Fair. I would say you guys are probably on par with like architecture kids in terms of just like you're always spending, and I only know this because I took one architecture class as a elective, and I stayed in the lab overnight because I put off the project until the very last minute that required like 3D modeling and blah blah blah, and all those kids were just like, it's 4 a.m. and they're just like chit chat, and I'm like, what the fuck? And so I asked them, and they're like, oh, we do this all the time. This is a nightly, this happens 5 times a week. We're all in the lab at 4 a.m.
This is the routine. This is how it goes.
So that's when I was like, oh, everybody, trauma.
Geneva mentioned Chase. Shout outs to Dr. Chase Bryn Gardner. I was primarily an engineering student, and I also had one of those, yeah, we start work at 4 p.m. and we're not done till 5 a.m. kind of labs.
Yep.
In the College of Engineering. And unfortunately, my work days were the nights before Chase's musical theater history class. So I maybe went to half of those classes.
It's not because you didn't want to go, but you had
It's not because I didn't want to be.
No gas in the tank.
It's because I was dead.
Yeah.
I was like, this guy doesn't like me. That's fine.
I'm sorry. I failed you, Chase. No, there's trauma bonding there in many forms. There's ensemble bonding in many forms. But at the end of the day, it is one of those, like, I'm not trying to romanticize my life like it could be a sitcom, but a lot of these moments do just unfold a little too sitcom-y. Who wrote this episode of my life?
This
Who's
woman
doing
is
this?
so good at transitions. Like, pay her.
That's why they keep me around.
So yeah, Geneva and Tori, along with their friend Margaret Borchert. How do you say her last name?
It's Borchert, so it's Swiss. So
Borchert.
Yeah, so Margaret's name is Margaret Borchert. Her part of her family is from Switzerland, and then obviously I'm Geneva. So we always joked
Hi, Geneva.
Hi, Geneva. So we always joked that if we ever did Margaret and I are writing partners, and so we ever joked, oh, when we finally like make our company, we should name it Swiss Squared as a joke. And
That's
they
a
were
good
like,
name.
And then this thing happened. We're like, well, I guess we have to follow through on this now.
A deal's a deal.
You get the deep cut lore right here, man.
And to be fair, I am not formally in their partnership, even though being the third creative person on this project. But I learned through 23andMe that I have Swiss roots because someone in my line was a mercenary from. So these women have like aristocratic roots, and I'm like, yeah, my guy, he fought for money, and then he went to Spain.
You know what though, Tori? That tracks.
So I like to think that it's Swiss cubed doesn't sound as good as Swiss squared, so I'm okay with that. But I just it was Swiss.
Swiss cubes, just cubes
It would
with
just be
holes
cheese.
in them.
No,
Exactly,
it
like
would
that
just be piles of
cheese.
Swiss cheese.
It's a charcuterie board just with Swiss cheese.
It was just cheese.
So this is a great way to break down that the dynamic is me, the kind of little sister in the background going, but what about me?
Yeah.
And Peggy.
And if somebody needs to get shot, that's in your genes. You got that. Joke,
I got
bro.
it. You got it,
I thought
Bodio. Right.
we've seen how Assassin's Creed works. I think we've got this.
I would say in a like zombie life or death scenario, I would trust Tori to like take out the zombies for me. I think she has it in her.
That's who you want leading your team.
The adrenaline does take over at a certain point, and I will just like because hey, let's break down the apocalypse scenario. I would nominate Geneva as the Christ figure, so I would be like, this is my job. I will lay my life down on the line.
I don't want to get into establishing the Geneva cult, as awesome as that sounds.
You've heard of the Geneva Convention. Now get ready for the Geneva cult.
It's fine, guys. The spin-off episode off this can be, okay, let's break down the apocalypse and who would do what.
Right. What's everybody's archetype in the apocalypse, and how do you fulfill that role, or how do you contradict your role?
This is just an excuse to bring up the Mr. Burns electric play.
Yes, you're so right.
We can't do that without Gibby. He'll be sad.
He will. So would Ian.
What the fuck was I talking about? Right, Tori Geneva's TV
D&D.
show.
Not The Simpsons, not Mr. Burns. We'll do that another time.
Yeah, Tori and Geneva have an amazing TV show called The Party, and I'll let y'all take it, you know, kind of give like the elevator pitch, the synopsis of what your show is, what's cool about it, and why people should stop wasting their fucking time and go watch every single episode.
It's free content.
It's free, damn it.
By golly, we gave it to the people. Democratization of content.
Hell yeah.
Go ahead, G.
All right, well, so The Party is about a group of friends who happen to play D&D together. More specifically, it's about when a new player joins their D&D campaign under false pretenses. And so then that causes things to shift in the group, and they have to navigate new dynamics and perils in both in-game and in real life.
It's so tight.
Yeah, it is. I think it's amazing for people who have played D&D and who don't play D&D, because we give you a fun little audience surrogate to kind of scoop on in there and get that eagle-eye perception of what this game is. And it is just it has both fun romps and also some pretty low moments. So it's a little dramedy that's near and dear to our heart, and we hope it makes you feel things.
So we have to ask, did the idea for the show come first, or were y'all like at the table one day and was like, man, we should write about this?
So I'll take this because it really started with me and Margaret, and then Tori helped us figure out what to do with it. During COVID times, you know, let's think back to 2020. We're stuck in our homes. So we were stuck at our desks in our homes, and Margaret and I were on a Zoom call writing one day, and they announced the D&D movie with Chris Pine, and we're like, this is intriguing. How are they going to do this? What are they going to do with this? We had questions. And then we just started talking generally about video game or other game adaptations in general. And we're like, it's so hard. And we're like, why have people had such difficulties with that? And, you know, we realize it's because a lot of times when you're playing a game, it's a first person experience. Like, you are active in this. And by virtue of an adaptation, you're turning it into a passive experience. And it's never going to match up to what you have in your head. Yeah. And I had worked on a development desk for a beat where my bosses were trying to specifically figure out how to crack the D&D RPG thing at all. And we were sitting there and we were chatting. And we're like, you know, it's funny. No one's ever really focused on the people who play. It's always about the game play itself. And we're like, which when you do that, it just becomes a fantasy movie. And at that point, you might as well just do a fantasy movie. And so we're like, okay, well, what if we did something about the people who play? What would that look like? And we're like, oh, that should be a sitcom, because if it's about a group of people, that's the natural format to explore that, the dynamics and relationships in and out of game. And so we just challenged ourselves. We're like, let's see if we can do this. And we busted out a pilot in the course of 1 to 2 months, which is insane for us with our working lives. And Tori read every single little ill-formed draft and thought and page and gave input. And she's like our tastemaker. We know if we can make Tori happy, then we have something.
I'm a tough crowd to please. I'll just say that.
It's that mercenary threshold.
It's the mercenary genes, guys.
Well, Tori, for her job, reads hundreds of scripts, so she has seen the full gamut.
It has both made me and broken me, I will say, in terms of I feel confident in my ability to give notes and understand what is working, what is not working. Can I enjoy anything for what it is? That's been dashed at this point in terms of just having worked. But glad my pain can, be brought to this threshold of being able to help somebody fix their script. But to be fair, I do just want to laud. I've really not read so many early drafts of a project and been like this is so good. This is almost there. Like this project kind of
Yeah.
shocked me in a way where I was like, I'm seeing the threads really come together very early in the process of like connectivity, and it's already working at this early stage. So I think that's a testament to Margaret and Geneva, just as writers, to like already at that stage they had something awesome on the page, which is rare.
Whoa, it's like our friends are talented or something.
Oh my
Wow.
God,
No.
they're good at their job. Shit, dude.
They're good at their jobs. What?
But all this to say, so we wrote a pilot because originally we were just like, let's write this as a writing sample. Because in Hollywood, when you want to become a writer, there's many paths, but one of the acceptable things is you write writing samples and you hope that one day somebody reads one of your scripts and says, wow, you're awesome. Let me hand you a job, kid. Good gumption.
There you go.
So anyways, we wrote it, we sat on it, and then what was it, like a year or 2 year later, like it was end of 2021, beginning of 2022.
It was probably about a year. I remember I got really into like, do you guys watch actual plays, like any D&D actual plays?
When I can, it's that like
they're such an investment of
they
time.
They
Yes.
are. One of my best friends in my apprenticeship, she was just getting into Critical Role, and I remember we would spend 3 hours driving across state to auditions, listening to Critical Role, and I'm like, I'm trying to keep up with this, but they are getting very into the technical pieces of it, which is great. I'm an Adventure Zone person myself,
Yeah,
because
a little bit of
this
Taz,
is goofy and
little
it's
bit
a
of Dimension
story.
20.
Yeah, for me, I am a Dimension 20 stan through and through. Just
Yeah.
because
Oh my God.
Because for me, it's like the way my brand of ADHD works is I need to have something quippy and I need to have a visual like to attach
And like
to
we're
it.
going
And, like,
back
that,
and forth. Like these are really dramatic. Like, ooh,
it's cut like
there's
a
something
TV
to sink
show.
your teeth into. And then
Yeah, it's
We
the fact that
goof.
it's just cut like a TV show was fascinating to me. I was like, oh, I'm able to keep up with this, and just doing online research of like who's watching this, like what's the kind of people who are into it, and like the sheer number of people that watch actual plays like astounded me. Of just like, I can't believe how many people are invested in this hobby, and I was like, well, this is a great thing. Like, and Geneva and Margaret like have this cool script they've written. Is there like a world in which that, because I really haven't seen a like web series about people who play D&D. I've just ever seen actual plays. Like, would there be an audience like for this thing? And so I kind of remember just like I think the conversations among the three of us were already like, wow, I really wish we could make something like, we've all worked in Hollywood for like a lot of years at that point. Not a lot, probably like between 4 and 5 years.
a handful
you're just at the,
enough
like,
to know, like, this is how things usually play out here. Yeah.
For me, it's just that script was the easiest thing for me to point to and be like, there's already an audience for people who love this. Like, so you kind of have like a minimum threshold of success that you could meet if you wanted to make this. If you wanted to make a short, a web series, like what is the thing that you want to make and like have be your brand? And so for me, it was just easy to point to the party and be like, let's pull this thing apart and like make something real and big out of it.
Like we were initially discussing it and we were like, okay, we want to make something with this, but what does that look like? Do we just make the pilot? Do we make a short? And then I remember we got back from Christmas and it was January 2022 and we were sitting around exchanging Christmas gifts a month late, as we always do. And we were like, you know what? It's kind of screw it. If we're going to do it, let's go for it. Because we had joked about like, oh, if we wrote more episodes, here's what we would have happen. And we're like, you know what? Actually, if we're going to commit to this, we should commit to the whole thing. Let's make a season. Let's make a whole arc and do that. Because as TV, you really need that time to show what you can do.
Yeah.
And so we were like, okay, let's make episodes. And then we kept talking and we realized, okay, it's going to look like this. It's going to be this many episodes. This is the time frame we can do. And then we're like, okay, we're going to do the thing because, we were all approaching 30 and we're like, you know what, kind of screw it. I'm tired of waiting for permission to be a creative person. Let's go be creative.
And then that kicked off 16 months. 16 months of blood, sweat, and tears in making this kind of come to the point where we're at now, which is 5 episodes aired, 2 more on the horizon, and hopefully, who's to say what goes beyond that?
Hell yeah, dude.
I honestly, one of my kind of thoughts about this, like, and the way that it feels, like what you were saying, like so many things that use D&D, because that's the sort of big overarching one of like the actual play scene. That's the one that people have at least have had time to get to know that that's a thing. It either becomes so focused on the story that exactly you get these great high fantasy movies or whatever's like the Chris Pine, the Honor Among Thieves movie, or you get it as a reference in other media, like in Stranger Things, where they're just using the iconography to feed the plot, or it's a joke in other things like Big Bang Theory or something like that, but nothing that sits kind of in between marrying those kinds of worlds. And like, honestly, I've been thinking like, ooh, you could do like an entire like world building series where you can have other seasons where this time it's about a group of like a Call of Cthulhu game. This is a kids on bikes game. This is like so many different like mechanics and ways to build worlds like this, that there really is like, these could be all different kinds of people, different setup, different style. Like you could do some more thriller mystery than full comedy sitcom. That like I'd love to know, kind of in the process of putting it together, like, were there things kind of in feeding the format of how the party came out that were like, oh, we want to make sure that this is a focus, like on top of like, yeah, we're looking at the people, like as people, not just their fantasy characters, but things that were important to incorporate and put into those plot threads and storylines as the tone of it was coming together.
Well, I'll say that when we started, when Margaret and I sat down, we were like, okay, because the way we generally work is either we like, here's a premise and what kind of characters would do this thing that would fulfill this premise, or we come up with characters and then like build a story around them. And this was more of we came up with the characters. Like we knew we needed a newbie so that they could be the audience surrogate. And then we were like, okay, well, what other type of player archetypes are there? And then from there we were like, well, obviously there's a DM. Obviously, there would be somebody like Jean who would be very like rule-minded.
Min-maxers, God.
and then low key, I was thinking of all of y'all, and I was like, oh, of course, there's a theater kid, which is Yorick.
Yay!
And and from there, all the characters like sprung to life in our minds, and then we like fleshed out who these people are, and then from there the plots made sense because certain characters won't do certain things. But so it was very important to us that it felt authentic we wanted them to feel like real people.
Yeah.
And we wanted their actions to feel like things that real people who play these games would do. But it was important to us that it was never making fun of them.
Right.
Like they're not the joke. Like they can make jokes about themselves, but they are not the punchline.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is coming from a place of love and people who genuinely enjoy the game and etc. So
Yeah.
Tori, you can take it away and be profound.
You were just so profound. Don't discount yourself like that. That was great. I was literally sitting here like, oh my God, yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I'm really sentimental deeply about the whole thing. So no, you hit the nail on the head with that. And especially since, Geneva and Margaret were the front line of defense for building out these characters, and I was the person kind of giving feedback in the background. I will say my one big contribution to like the big pilot that we then broke apart and made the web series into was I read the first draft, and it was very solid, a great attempt at a first draft, because they are great at just like putting what they have on the page and they don't edit themselves, and they're not self-conscious in that way. They're like ready to have it picked apart. And I was just reading through being like, well, I think the one facet of the D&D experience that I love so much that's not on the page is how you, when you're sitting at the table, see yourself in the narrative of the game that you're playing.
Yeah.
You get transported to that environment, and like, when I'm sitting at the table role playing with my friends, and then, years pass, I'm not sitting back thinking like, oh, remember we were all sitting at the table together? Like my brain is in the meadow. We're all standing. We're like fighting an enemy. We're engaging with each other. And so I was like, is there any way we could have like this fantasy setting that we just cut in and cut out from? Because this is a big part of the experience. How do you perceive yourself and your friends like in this setting?
We were like, again, we wrote this as like an exercise for ourselves in the middle of the pandemic. We're like, okay, they're going to go by their character names because why not? And then we were like, okay, we don't. And then we're like, let's not show the gameplay. Let's see if we can just get away with just showing them in real life. And Tori rightly pointed out that you have to show why they're so invested in this game. And you were like, can we show glimpses of the game at least? And we're like, okay, what does that look like? How do we do that? And we realized, like, because originally, like, there's a big scene in episode 2 where they go through the different classes with Viola and Yubi.
Yes. I love those, like, cameo, like, just glimpses of every person that they're listing. I'm like, yep, that's a barbarian. That's a like, 100%.
But no, there was originally a version of that scene where they're just sitting around a kitchen table talking to her about those things. And like, you know, and you realize this from being in theater, Kaylie, is like, there's one thing to read something on a page, but then like to sit there and hear someone say the monologue out loud.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, this is an opportunity to plus this up. What can we do with this scene? And that way you're like, oh, we should show the characters types. Oh, where would they naturally all congregate? Tavern. Oh, Tavern of the Mind. And so that was where that device came from. And it's been one of our favorite pieces of this. And thank you, Tori, for asking us to dig deeper. Because I remember being like, oh, but you know what?
I imagine there's also like practical limitations to having to paint an entire actress blue and put horns on her.
Put horns on her and make sure she's
like,
okay.
Put everybody in all these cloaks and robes in Los Angeles and be like, yeah, stand around for a couple hours while we keep setting and resetting shots.
That's literally what it was. And if you think about it, this was really mine and Geneva and Margaret's like first, thing that has ever gone from the page to the screen. And so that was a big learning curve for us to be. And so, yes, you have one element of show, don't tell. So I think even in reading the draft, it became so much more legible, at least, to like, oh, I can envision this. But then take that one step further and be like, okay, so practically, how do we shoot this? How do we go? How are we pivoting? It's like, that I would say was just one of the hardest parts of this whole thing is like, how do you make something so visually digestible? And like, but if even just, I guess the way I'm trying to distinguish with the sentiment is like, you guys plussed it up on the page, like it even became more readable. And that's what only most people get to make that step. Because think about how many scripts that are written that are not, that don't get to go to fruition of getting made. And they're beautiful and they're wonderful, but it's like, then you have to take it to that third step that's like, oh gosh, like you actually have to get the camera set up and who can you show in the background? And, Geneva and I in that scene, if you look around, we're tavern wenches because then you have to have that whole element of, oh, people have to move around in the background to have an eye tracking
People
thing.
are here. There's things happening. It's not just an empty set.
Exactly. So it's just for me, I'll always love that scene of like, oh my God, like we really started from nothing and had to go we had to go through 80,000 steps to get to the end.
I had all these profound questions to ask y'all, but y'all keep like answering them yourselves and beating me to it.
They're writing the answers before you can even ask the questions.
It's crazy, bro.
It's almost like we've been talking about this for a year and a half.
What?
It's like when your friend's pregnant with a baby and that's all they can talk about. This is us with our friends. So here's the latest update
for you, dear. Yeah.
I want to transition a little bit, and because you mentioned characters and how you created them, and I kind of want to focus on newbie Viola. I believe she's the only one with a real name that we go into.
Yes, no.
Yes,
I don't
no.
know.
So everybody goes by their in-game character name. So she is, when you meet her in the first episode, she's referred to as newbie, and then at the end of episode 2, once she joins the party, she gets her in-game character name, which is Viola.
Excellent. So I wanted to ask, what was the motivation behind Viola's character, and in terms of her plot, why go with the deceiver kind of plot line as opposed to just somebody going through D&D and playing around with that?
So when you create characters, there ends up being a little bit of you in all of your characters you create.
Can I tell you? I'm gonna interrupt your thought. Can I tell you, Kaylie and I were sitting there watching Viola move around. It's like, yeah, that's an outfit Geneva would wear.
Like, no.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Without even watching y'all's like writing episode, like talking about the pilot, like I'm sitting there watching this. Some of her lines, like the kind of academic that she is, the like the frame of reference just to what she knows pop culturally versus other niches, and then exactly the outfit choices, and I think even just some of her mannerisms. I'm like, I don't like. This is not an insult, but in the best way possible. This is Geneva.
Uh-huh.
That's my big right there.
I'm not gonna lie, there were some uncanny valley moments because shout out to April, the actress who played Viola. She's amazing, and I think I could tell her studying me on set sometimes. And we would talk sometimes, and there would be vocal cadences. It's like, good study. Okay, cool. And then Kai, our costumer, and Maeve, our assistant costumer, they're dear friends. And the number of times I had to be like, Kai, I have something up there in my closet upstairs that looks too similar here.
What size is she? I'll bring it.
All this to say is like, yes, there's a little bit of you in all of your characters.
Yeah,
a lot of it went into me went into newbie, Viola.
But I will say, Geneva is not a deceiver. That is
No.
probably the
No.
answer. I know. I wanted to make that distinction.
Yes. So my first campaign I played a deceiver. I played a spy. So our first long-term campaign we played was set in 1920s San Francisco during Prohibition, except it was magic that was prohibited instead of booze. Well, booze and magic.
Yeah.
And so I played
love
a character.
Fantastic Beasts.
Correct.
Yes. And so anyways, my character was a spy from the Prohibition Agency who was like infiltrated this like group of smugglers that we were all part of. And so my character went through this emotional arc where she suddenly became like friends with all of these people in her party. And she had to struggle with like, I have these feelings about magic and how it's been used in World War I in this fictional world. And then, but also like, I see how my friends are using it sometimes for good, et cetera, et cetera. And so like just that whole emotional arc. And so we were like, okay, well, Viola Newbie, arc. What's interesting? A character with a secret. And then, you just draw from all these influences in your life.
Yeah.
And then I think the writing layer to that is like, how do you sow seeds of conflict if you don't have a person who's just a little bit shitty?
Yeah.
Right,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Like, you can't have everybody just be like, we're all friends, yay! Because, no, exactly. Then nothing moves forward. But at the same time, I'm like, I am normally, I blame Disney for just driving this trope to death within the last decade or two of just the stupid liar revealed trope. I normally hate it. And so far, I'm like, I hope this still has a happy ending. As someone having gone through grad school and my partner also, like, Ian's in a PhD program, I'm sitting here going, there's an ethical level of concern I have if I were her advisor on this project. And according to Ian, who is in liberal arts as a graduate student, according to the IRB, it's basically vampire rules, where as long as you have been invited to observe the group, that is then a public space that you are observing and making your experiential, like, anthropological notes in. However, if someone doesn't know that they're being interviewed for data and research, that is when there is like board level questions of ethical behavior.
Yeah.
So you should, like, what she's done is like, no, it's not technically wrong of her to have like it's not illegal for her to have done that in the board's eyes. It is unethical, but at the moment it's not wrong.
You're not positing this, but let me tell you. So imagine she goes into the meeting and she pitches the professor, and then she's like, well, you know what, I'm gonna do D&D. They're not gonna know. And then the professor goes, well, the IRB said no, so pick something else. Show in there.
Yes. And then we don't go anywhere. Yeah.
I know. And so that's what I'll lovingly tell our haters is like, well, you know what? Let's forget the IRB.
I've loved watching, like, in each video, like, and especially the last, like, couple episodes, like, as we're getting closer to this, like, ooh, when's shit gonna hit the fan? How's this gonna go? Like, there have been more comments going, like, I can't wait for the ethics board review, and I'm like, I'm glad there's so many grad students and, like, academics watching this.
Let me tell you, we knew we were going to get, like, people who were like, oh, you didn't follow this rule, etc., blah, blah, blah. But I did not anticipate grad student critiques of the masters.
Should we lovingly give a shout out to Dr. Emily Friedman?
Okay,
Dr. Friedman.
Love Dr. Friedman. You know what? I feel validated because Dr. Friedman specifically said she can suspend disbelief for this.
Oh yeah. No, and I mean, especially just in the way that so much, like, television, like, related media treats higher academia, where there are some things that, like, just brush everything off as, like, there's no structure to this. You just write a thing and then you get a diploma, where I'm at least, like, y'all are like, no, this is a, like, film level plausibility and suspension of disbelief. It's not completely by the book, but that wouldn't be fun if that were the case. But it is a level of, like, yeah, no, you do need to propose a project. Otherwise, you pitched a great thing when you applied, and yeah, if you can't uphold that bargain, what are you doing here? You're taking up a slot.
Thank you, Dr. Friedman, who is probably the leading academic, I would say, in the TTRPG community for forgiving us. And as long as she forgives us, that I can go to sleep at night.
Yes. The only validation you could ever want out of life.
I think to Kaylie's point, the soft ticking clock of you got to get this done. If you don't, then, we're going to kick you out. You lose your scholarship, and then you got to go back to your daddy's fracking money house.
God, right? Fracking reveal. Oh.
Having all of that in Viola's background does justify her action. Not justify in quotation her actions.
It motivates.
It makes them make sense.
Yeah.
I could see the kind of truth in her face in that moment when she was like, well, my parents said they'd pay for things as long as I stay in school. So, man, I could just stay in school forever. As I'm currently, now in between full-time work, having just finished a master's going, can I just keep not being done with school?
Well, to your point, we know people like this. Like, I knew somebody who, a friend of a friend of a friend, who straight up, her family told her she stayed in school because she wanted to keep learning. Mm-hmm. And her family was like, actually, no, we want you to come home and be a socialite. Here's a house we bought you.
Yikes, McGikes. Well, at least you got a crib out of it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, part of me I've been so worn down by capitalism, I'm like, that sounds like a great deal to me.
Yeah, right? It's like, whoa, you got a house? You got 40 acres? Bet, man.
Right?
I'll marry some jerk for that. It's only, a few years? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
We're just returning to Austintinian, era of etiquette. Like, well, I don't have to do anything if I've just agreed to be here and live in this fancy house now. Okay, I guess.
But also, we've all seen this too, is there's people who I think continue along their academic path because they love the structure and they are getting validation, and they haven't stopped to think about, who am I outside of this? Because we are put in those tracks from such a young age.
Yeah. And
given those markers and those structures and that schedule, and to think of a life that you have to build for yourself outside of that is daunting for many, many people.
Do you think Viola's one of those people?
Oh, 100%.
Absolutely.
It's I'm going to go to school, I'm going to do my master's, and then I'm just going to teach at this school, and I'm never going to leave.
There will be some pointers in the next few episodes that really solidify that thinking, I'll say, for sure, of just getting very comfortable, because you don't really want to give external thought to anything that might be a little bit outside your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm. This is what I've grown up with, and I'm fine with that because I'm good at it. Why do I need anything else?
So who's been the most fun character to write for?
Oh, I love them all.
Yeah, but you gotta pick your favorite child.
It depends on the time and the scene and the episode and the joke.
Geneva's waffling. I for sure have an answer. My favorite.
Mercenary attitude.
I know our cast is gonna listen to this too.
We're not picking a favorite. The way I look at writing, and I think Geneva can speak to this as Viola, is where are your personal traits going into what characters? And that's not a favoritism thing. That's just whose voice can I speak to the most? And I am such a nerd geek person. All of the things that come in my mouth are references to other things. So for me, Jean is so easy in that way because he's he's a Star Trek guy. For him is just it is a cut and dry reference to another thing. So I wrote probably a lot of the things that Jean says, the references, so that's my contribution for sure. It's so easy for me to get in the mindset of a guy that's just so cut and dry like that. So that was, I would say, easy and favorite, because that's the guy, that's kind of who I am without the, spoiler alert. So take that away.
I said we're currently, it's a little late for it now, but spoilers for some of this.
Sorry, Gibby, can you just bleep out everything I said? The spoil, just give us some beeps.
Tori, welcome to the podcast. You just told editor Gibby to do something. You're immediately part of the family. Welcome. I appreciate you.
Gibby has no idea who I am, but he will.
Good.
We love him, but we live to make his life a minor hell as he has to
Editor
edit these
Gibby,
episodes.
play the Picard no sound right now.
No! No!
I love him so much.
Thank you.
They've done this so many times on Discord where it's just been a shouting match.
They're all for life.
I'm gonna hold my little finger guns to Geneva's head right now because I want her to make a decision.
Okay.
The roulette wheel is spinning. Pick one.
Okay. So I will say the characters probably have the most aspects of me in them are York, Thistle, and Viola.
Mm-hmm.
York, obviously, my most unhinged theater kid tendencies were given license and permission to be loud. And so York is what I wish I had been as a theater kid. I think I was very concerned with being correct and getting everything right when I was in the theater department because I didn't want to jeopardize anything. And so I was like, York is who I am when I'm freewheeling and I don't care and I don't give a rip, which is also sometimes how I play in D&D, as Tori can attest. Just some choices I've made.
Oh yeah, she'll say they're for flavor. I say they're from not knowing any better.
I felt a deep personal attack in so I should make bad decisions because
my God.
To this day, I've been playing D&D, I think consistently-ish now for like 5-ish years.
5-6 years?
Yeah, something like that. I had a minor hiatus. But like, when I play, I am so like, okay, other people are doing like all this great damage or doing really smart things in their turns. What can I do? This. And I get like a questioning from Ian as the DM. Are you are you gonna do that? Or from Bo and Gibby as like, okay? Or do you have a bonus action? I'm like, no, I don't have a bonus action. Should I have a bonus action?
Kaylie and I have been close friends for about 7 or 8 years now.
Yeah.
The only fight we have ever got in was at the table. I was getting eaten by a catfish, and Kaylie, the bard, would not cast any spells because she was like, I might need them later. It's like, lady, I need them now. Help
Oh my
me.
God, Kaylie, are you also like a conservationist, like in video games and stuff? Like,
Yes.
I
always am attracted to like druids and spellcasters because I really love the flexibility that you can do with that. Except I have that horrible pack rat video game mentality of I might need this item for later. What if there's a bigger bad that I have to use this item on?
That's what I'm saying. I am a resource.
That's how I treat my spells.
Yes, I agree. I can't give them away.
I only have 2 level 5 spells. It better be damn important for me to use this.
When I'm sitting here in a boat getting absolutely munched on because Gibby the rogue was like, let me poke a thing without telling anybody I'm gonna do.
I love
And
him.
I'm exploding. Our ranger is exploding. I'm full down. And our GM's like, what are you gonna do? And Kaylee's like, I don't know. I don't want to cast my spells anymore. I'm like, I'm at -5 HP. I would like something.
All I'm hearing is that Kaylie is judicious and she's doing it right. And
I'm a wizard. I have no health.
You're
oh,
squishy.
Bo is squishy.
Poor squishy baby.
Liz, wow. Is this what this
Wait,
is
so
becoming?
Bo's playing as baby Grogu. Your baby Grogu.
Don't put that evil on me, madam. Don't you dare.
This does remind me of a question that I did have, and I know it's kind of going back into the weeds of preparing something like this. But my first thought, honestly, when Viola was still picking like what they were gonna do, my thought was honestly that she was gonna pick at least like kind of something in between of being a defense or a heavy hitter, because I was looking at that party going, there's a lot of magic users already here.
Yeah, we need a tank.
I wonder like what the dramaturgy and the constant looking at the writing or how things were playing out in the moment in the campaigns, like in shooting, like where y'all had to be like, okay, how would this go? Like rules, strategy, like how many things have or haven't been used yet? Like I can't imagine trying to keep track of all of that.
Well, I think, Geneva and I are not strangers to an unbalanced party. I think that our current campaign, we don't really have a tank. We have no healer. So
It's so much fun.
Freewheeling it.
So I think that's the practical answer of like, you know, sometimes you pick things that you are drawn to as a character without the over need for balance. Like, oh my God, like we don't have an XYZ, but I think, and since Geneva was on the forefront of the conceptualization of newbie as a wizard, I think she can better speak to it. But I think the 2 cents for me are just like, doesn't it make sense that like the person who's the most academically minded would pick the most academically forward person? And like,
no, like the connections and those parallels, I'm like, oh, these are so juicy. And I love like her and Yorick's whole like, oh, I see you're making Shakespeare references. Well, here, I'm Viola, the twin. Like,
we may be more in the weeds if we chose to show more of gameplay. But if you think about where we've gone from episode 3 to kind of where we're out now with episode 5, we've we're not really showing those in the weeds moments of like rolling dice and that stuff. So I think for me on that front, it's we're paying attention a little bit less to like balance and stuff in class.
And it's becoming more about the people as people and not just their characters, like as things keep cooking. But no, I always am curious because I know there's just people that love tearing things apart and rules lawyering in a game without like any view of public perception. That like it's all this, the biggest complaint has been the like, in the Honor Among Thieves, she should have been able to turn into an owlbear. That's not a creature. That's a monster. Like,
nerds love semantics. Nerds love semantics.
Yes. I will say, as Tori's mentioned, we're not strangers to playing in an unbalanced party. I think because our parties, and when we play with our party, we all say like, what type of character do we want to play, and what kind of story are we interested in playing? We aren't necessarily always thinking about like what's the best way to quote unquote win this,
right?
Which would mean
we're not all Jeans.
Yes, and so
we are faced with the very real possibility of death and or rolling another character.
As here,
start the next sheet.
And so when we were figuring out like what we had to figure out what everyone else played, and obviously, and so those were off the table, as you know, we saw in the scene. They check off all what's left, and of the things that were left, we're like, well, as Viola as a character, what would she be interested in? What would she feel most attuned to? And like knowing her level of pop culture references, like she knows pop culture, but maybe not niche nerddom. And so, like, wizard, Harry Potter, I'm aware of this as a concept. Yes, great,
I think the PowerPoint photo is, oh my God, what's the Lord of the Rings wizard? I just died.
Gandalf. Take away a nerd point.
I'm about to get crucified.
No.
She knows the tent poles for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and I could tell like the PowerPoint slide was like old parchment scroll, but some of the text looked I couldn't tell at a glance, but I was like, my first thought was either this is papyrus, which is funny, or it's Marauder's map font, which is also a good wizard reference. I just couldn't tell from like how the camera was, but I'm like, okay, yeah, like she knows some things, and clearly having been roommates with DM is a like, you wouldn't have been allowed into this living space, let alone to this table, if you didn't know, like, you didn't have some, like, landing points between the two of you and that connection.
Well, also, and then just more broadly, you can tell that she's, like, a literature, theater, textual nerd. And so, like, wizards as a literary trope, like, she would definitely be aware of those. And so it makes sense to us that she would have been attracted to that. And again, on top of that, she's an overachiever. What is a wizard if not an overachiever? So...
I am squishy, but I am very pompous and good at things.
Yeah, if I had to characterize it, she was like, I would have to characterize her inner journey is probably, how do I get Yorick? Here's my story hook. What fits that story hook? Okay, wizard. Also, I know what a wizard is. I can figure this out from here. Yeah.
So as we get closer to time here, let's
yes.
I got some more nerd questions. So, the party have been playing together for a while. I believe about a year. They said they're in a high level campaign. We know everybody's classes: rogue, paladin, druid, wizard. Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And
warlock.
Pardon me. What is everybody's subclass?
Oh, okay, let me, without consulting the sheet, because we do have one, let me see if I can get it correct.
Ooh, y'all thought about this. I love it.
Yeah.
We
So-
did. We thought about this. We picked them. Do I recall? We'll find out.
My favorite thing about Geneva is, and Geneva will tell you this, but I will dox her at the podcast. Geneva, and I think Geneva and I figured this out actually a couple nights ago because we were talking about it, and we have had like a little bit of a hiatus from our home game because we have been working on the party, and it has taken up all
The
of our free
second
time.
campaign.
The second campaign.
Yes.
And I was just like, well, you know, I was ribbing Geneva a little bit because I think out of our home game, she is definitely more role play focused and not as focused on like mechanics and things like that. And I was like, well, to be fair, I think out of our table, you've never really played a video game. Like you play Nancy Drew on the computer like when you were 10, and that's like the extent of your thing. So we're all pretty video game trained in a way that it's a good game. It's a good game. And so I
They
think
slap.
in terms of just like understanding like subclass and things, like I think I can at least speak to it a little bit better because Geneva, to her credit, like I think, you know, you're way more concerned with like the role play and what's going on interpersonally. Am I correct or incorrect?
No, that is definitely the draw for me. And then, can you tell I'm a theater kid?
But what makes a good story? What's a good choice?
So I will, with that, run through people's subclass. We know that Viola for sure is she's from the School of Enchantment.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Enchantment
they do say
wizard.
that.
That's
Yep.
that being a plot point of like, well, you know, you're manipulating people and you know, all that stuff. Yorick is Archfey, Pact of the Archfey,
Makes
right?
sense.
That's how you do Warlock.
Yeah.
I've only played
Yeah.
I played a Monklock, so you know, monk, Warlock, multiclass. So I'm like,
Interesting.
that's what it is, right?
I'm gonna pick your brain about that later.
Yeah, it was interesting. Archfey, he has the pact with Queen Titania as his patron. We've got Ecstasy. Ecstasy is an assassin rogue.
Sure.
Again, a class I've not played. Any assassin rogues here? Oh, were you an assassin, Geneva? Yeah, you were an assassin.
No, that's where
No?
we got it from. It's like I played an assassin rogue.
yeah.
Interesting.
Yep, Geneva has been an assassin rogue. Jean is Oath of Redemption paladin because he is a fallen Aasimar and he Tefoltis, god of
Yeah.
law.
God of light.
God of
I think
light
my
and
favorite
law.
thing has just been the like quip about calling him Barry Blue Jeans, and I went, oh, a reference after my own heart.
Yep.
I'm so glad that landed.
My boy, I love Barry Blue Jeans. Anyways,
Sweet Little Thistle is a Circle of Dreams, I believe. She's a Circle of Dreams.
Kaylie played a
druid.
my
Circle
last
of
druid
Dreams.
was a Circle of
Yes.
Dreams.
Yeah. Again, I don't know about the class, so like, what drew you to that class? I guess is my question.
This was a very strange druid. I picked Felis as my race, so it was just this like this little tiny cat toddler, not a tabaxi size, but like 3 foot tall little cat. In this sort of like we're nomadic, and so we're living under the stars a lot, and they tell us things, and it was that like, ooh, okay, there's some prophetic things that can be brewing in that regard, because our DM was kind of playing with my character and another character as like, things are happening in this world, and you two are kind of getting these dreamlike other dimension kind of like flavors or warnings or something coming from beyond. That it worked very well for the story, but I was also just like, this one's fun. I think this fits Anfisa, because out of the options, I was like, yeah, this would work.
Anfisa
for her
was
background.
a fun character.
I love her.
And she loved to polymorph people. Loved to
that
polymorph
was-
people.
Yeah.
Classic druidic
There was-
shenanigans.
My current bard is also a like, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'll
every
get ya.
time, I know Kaylie has the spell, and every time she does it, I'm never mentally prepared for the ramifications of it.
Oh, let me tell you, the first time I saw polymorph in game, I did not know that was a thing because I was only paying attention to like what my character type could do at that moment. And so our bard turned into a T-Rex and it was glorious.
And remember the rule of
Whoa.
polymorph is you had to have seen it, right? Isn't that one of the is that not a polymorph
you have to know
rule
you have to,
where it's like
you have,
That's one of
you
the
have to know about
unspoken
it.
rules. You have to
It's
know
an
what it
unspoken rule.
is. Yeah.
we played in a
Yes.
1920s game, so her reasoning, her logic for like I can polymorph is she had seen it in a museum. She's like, I've
Right.
seen
Yeah.
this in a museum and I can do it. And I applauded that, and I think we nominated her for an inspiration point from that one.
Yes.
So
It might not be an accurate representation of what a T-Rex might have actually looked like, but we've reconstructed it as best as we can. So
I got the
that
health
is-
and I'm
that
eat,
counts.
folks. Let's get it.
So yeah, those are all. That's everybody at the table, right? That's all their subclasses. So they're and they are playing in a high level game. It's a who's to say what is and isn't high level. I think that's to be left up to
Yeah.
discretion. They are playing at level 8, so
Okay.
that is newbies
Yeah.
coming into a level 8 game, which I think for a new person is probably a
That's
steep
pretty
learning
intense.
curve.
That's
Yeah.
that's tier 2 of D&D. Pushes up the glasses.
Thank you, Bo. No, like there's a lot of things that you can do, so it's like you've got resources. You're not just like scrambling to just figure out how to do something so you don't die from a pack of rats. But at the same time, exactly, there's that learning curve of like you can do a lot of things. Do I know what all these things do? Oh God. Oh no. Oh,
You've got pretty
help.
pretty big magic by 8th level.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
shout outs to DM for playing a year and y'all only level 8. That's diabolical. I'd be begging for levels, bro.
Our third creative partner, Margaret, who's not on this call, is our DM, and like she's kept us
Yes.
on a similar playing field of like we're
That's
keeping you guys
slow
down.
burn. Slow burn of the century.
Well, we
Yeah.
usually level up when we hit a point in the story,
Sure.
and sometimes
Story.
we take a lot. And we sometimes we love a shopping trip. Sometimes we got to chase down a kitchen.
Shopping trip episodes.
You know, sometimes it takes us a minute to get there.
So she's a tough boss, tough but fair is how I would describe
Sure,
Margaret as our
sure.
DM. Yeah.
If you're in a level drought for like more than a month or two, DMs, pick it up, bro.
That's when
Give
you.
it-
That's when you
give
start
us the
getting the
shiny
pitchforks
powers.
and torches.
Right. Let us do fun stuff.
Well, I like the challenge, and I think it's
Ooh.
fun to keep the story going as long as possible.
I
so
agree.
Yeah.
I'm not mad.
But also, this is my first time playing in Kaylie and I's my current campaign. This is my first time playing a caster. It's too much.
Yeah.
I just want to punch stuff. But when I do have big magic, right? It's so much fun to say, "Hey, here's a psychic lance. I did a bunch of damage, and also you can't move, loser." And I like getting
Yeah, that's
people to
Maglore.
that as soon as that's Maglore. And getting people to that as soon as possible. I'm not judging people's DM styles. Play the fucking game you want.
Yeah.
We're way off
Maglore
top.
is such a good name.
Thank you.
No, I love like hearing about y'all's kind of like campaign inspiration for for like how y'all have drawn stuff and fed it into the party and made it goofy, because then I look at the campaigns that I've been in and I always think that D&D kind of falls in that spectrum of like, exactly, play how you want, play the kind of campaign in the world that you want. Do you want guns in the campaign? Do you want steampunk tech? Whatever fits your vibe. But like 8 out of 10 times it will fall somewhere in the spectrum tonally, if not necessarily atmospherically, to somewhere between Lord of the Rings or Monty Python. And I
Yep.
feel like more of the campaigns I've been in always just teeter more to the Monty Python side. And we get these great threads of trying to put it back towards story, compelling, plot, but we keep fucking around and finding out.
It's such a natural lean to comedy in my brain because if you think about what we're doing objectively, we are grown-ups sitting at a table playing pretend. Is there anything
Yes.
about that is not inherently funny? Like, just about that concept. So it's just, and that's not like me, that's not me shitting on the hobby. I'm just like, you're being,
No.
like, there's nothing about that's not silly. So for me, just
Right.
like, it is inherently a silly thing to do. So for me, it's like, I don't really know anybody whose games lean towards Lord of the Rings. If you watch Dimension 20, they have their side quest Escape from the Bloodkeep, which is about as high fantasy as you can go with their Lord of the Rings. And they are still silly, goofy people. Like,
Right.
it's just, you can't not be silly,
you can't
goofy.
be so in it all the time as
Yeah.
you are improvising the next direction for the story. Like, you kind of have to open yourself to that and be loose, which often can be comedic.
Well, I'll also say from a storytelling perspective that to me, the richest stories that I love combine drama and comedy moments. And that if you are serious and dramatic and everyone's always in jeopardy all the time, it gets boring very quickly. You have to have moments of humanity. You have to have moments of mirth. And in real life, how often have I had like a traumatic thing happen and then immediately somebody did something so ridiculous that I'm crying, but I have to laugh.
This is a good catharsis.
Yes.
Keep
Brecht
going.
would be proud. And so to me it's natural that you do combine those elements, and going one way or the other is not a balance in the force, to borrow from another franchise.
all my favorite stories, I think my favorite story archetype is when characters start out as silly goofy and then you proceed with them on that tone, and then you find a way to twist the knife and make it very, very, very traumatic, very hard, like, because I'm so invested, because you comedy brings people in, and then something bad happens and I feel like I'm punched 10 times as hard than not starting in that comedic place.
The when Sokka's girlfriend dies this season kind of characters.
Yes, like Avatar works. I'm gonna here. You gave me an opening. I'm gonna take it.
Yeah,
Avatar
do it, dude.
works.
By the way, I am in your camp of it's not technically,
it's not
but
fucking
spiritually,
anime. No, it's
I think
not.
it's an anime.
No,
we'll fight about this later. I'm on your side, Geneva. That is a sacred text in this household.
Yes. But it draws us in with the comedy where you latch onto these characters. Mm-hmm. We're like, oh, I know you little blurbos. I know how you work. And then when things happen to them, it has weight. It means something. And you feel it.
Which I loved to death in episode 5. Like, now that we're getting into the drama, just ending that with, that's rough, buddy.
Thank you.
Like,
and it was, I'm glad I lost the fight, because I'm in this writing trifecta. Margaret and Geneva are formally partners. I am the person who plays, I'm kind of the devil's advocate and Socratic method writer of like, are you sure? Like,
but why?
Is there a way anybody could interpret this? Yeah, I'm sure I'm so annoying to sit with, because all my questions are just like, are you sure? And so I was like, I don't know,
you
guys.
Sure
like,
about that?
People understand, like, that's rough, buddy. Like, I get it. I get that's funny. And like, I just don't know if like that's just wide enough to like really end this very disheartening moment on like, but I, again, so glad I lose some of the battles that I lose, because I think that it was the perfect way to end that episode.
Which is also just funny because like Jean gets that dig of like, that's a Star Trek reference, and then he gets to come back with that's rough, buddy.
York gets a win.
Like, I'm like, oh, touche. Like, it's a nice exchange of nerd culture reference. Like, is it a sharp knife? Not necessarily, but in the moment, it hits. And it's really like, ooh, yes.
Not to like, I really respect the three of us as writers, because I don't think we approach it like a Big Bang Theory where it's like, how many references can we jam pack in like one?
Thank you.
Have you
in
guys
the background,
ever seen that, like...
yes, I love how many references are in the back. Like, the first time I saw the companion cube on the kitchen counter, I was like, yes.
But those are contextual, right? They're contextual references that have
would be
meaning,
in their
and
apartment.
they add weight.
Absolutely.
And but because it's like, I think the Big Bang Theory likes to, once upon a time, like to just how many like names and brands can we give you that just don't have any bearing on like what the hell we're talking about?
Right.
And for us, it's like,
nerd
we like
things
to use
are
those
funny.
as,
that's why we say nerd thing.
Yeah, for us, I think that's just it's a way to like code with the audience of like, well, you speak this, we speak this, like, and we're moving the plot forward in this way with our language.
Right.
So
like, it's not just to be set dressing in some ways
that was
in the
a little horn
dialogue.
toot.
Yeah, no. It is set dressing for the set so it looks lived in. It is not set dressing in our dialogue. We promise that like we're still churning the gears along underneath this. It's just what we're talking about right now, and then we're gonna something's going on. Okay, what's that? And we move forward, because that is how friend groups at the table usually sort of go in some way.
Hell yeah. Last final question, and we'll wrap up here. What are Geneva, Tori, Margaret, what are your 3 like soul classes, right? Like, what's your soul character? Which one are you drawn to most? Which class do you identify with most? Let's hear it.
Oh my god, Geneva, do you feel like you have an answer?
Which one do I resonate with the most? You know,
I have an answer for Geneva, and I'll be curious to see if the answer lines up with mine.
We'll compare.
So I mean, I've played in like a bunch of our little one-shot offs, you know, and then let me see. I did a cleric in your Christmas campaign where I got to cast Fireball all the time, and that was, oh my god, my Southern came out, Fireball.
Cast Fireball.
And I've played a rogue, and now I'm playing a bard. And you know what? I think ultimately I'm gonna maybe circle back to a cleric because I feel like they combine a lot of the elements that I like about spellcasters with these story elements that excite me in rogue. I have a soft spot for rogue because it was my first one, obviously.
Oh.
But no, wait. Now that I'm, I want to be okay. Here's the real deals. I want to be cool enough to say I'm a rogue, y'all. But I'm like, I'm probably a soft little cleric. Let's be real. So I'll be intrigued to know what Tori's perception of me is. But all this to say is, like, I haven't played enough classes yet where I feel like I can give us thorough answer at that analysis yet.
She was a cleric in a one-shot that I DM'd. That was my first one-shot ever. And I'm still on a DM learning curve. And for me, this is such a deviation from the question, but I'm on such a DM learning curve because I famously like to have control, and I have a hard time relinquishing control. Does that sound familiar to this narrative that we've been working on?
That's why I can't run campaigns or one-shots, because I'm like, but what happens when they do this? Oh.
When they do this? Well, you know what, to be fair, like, I really want to try again because I just took like an 8-week long improv course that I feel like really loosened me up in terms of just like, I feel like so much easy, like, we'll have to see pedals in the metal, but like, I feel so much more like, you know, like I feel like I can relinquish control in a way that I can't.
Something
but
feels
it's
different
funny.
now.
It feels like there was kind of like a cork in the wine bottle that just kind of got opened, and I'm like, oh, okay, like I can breathe, I can do this. But Geneva did play a cleric, and now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, you're so right. I do feel like that is her soul class. I was inclined to say bard because I think that you for everything. For Geneva, I think everything is like a literary reference of like art, and those motifs in your life are just very strong and they come through. But my soul class is, if I had to tell you guys what the most poorly optimized class and subclass in this game, if I had to tell you, what do you think that is? Because that is my class and soul class. Yeah, it is notoriously known for being the worst class in D&D 5e class and subclass pairing.
By like normal people, or by like people really into people
who are like into it, I would say, in terms of just like optimization. They're like, this is the shitter, this is the lowest.
Probably it's either the monk or the ranger. They tend to get the most shit on them. Yeah.
Beastmaster Ranger.
There it is.
It is the worst, and I played that as my character in our most recent like long running campaign. But it's like, I grew up in Alabama. I love being outside, so like that is the ranger who's like using the environment and tracking. And I think it's ironic that I played a tracker in a 1920s San Francisco campaign, a city that is like a city. But
the concrete jungle.
I love the outdoors. I love animals. So that I would say is, it's the best of both worlds. Again, worst class and subclass you could possibly pick. That was mechanically a shit show of a time for me. But hey, you know what? The soul wants what the soul wants.
Right.
The soul wanted an animal sidekick, and that's what you got.
You gotta have the pet, bro.
Right. It's that either you're drawn towards having a pet or wanting to be an animorph, and this is the closest you can get to that.
Correct.
So Easter egg at the beginning of episode 5 when Ecstasy's like, hey, have you prepped? We want to drop Molotov cocktails. We would use Tori's hawk to drop Molotov cocktails on like enemy groups.
We would.
That campaign.
Yeah.
Make the animals do the bidding.
If you really want to get into the meta, I realized later that Molotov cocktails were not invented until like 2 decades past when we were playing. So
you guys
and then I looked
invented
up
Yeah.
You're so right. You asked about Margaret and what her soul class would be. I view Margaret as an artificer, and I wonder if she would agree with me because, and I'll ask her after this call or when she listens to this podcast, because I think I'm playing an artificer right now. And for me, an artificer is a combination of someone who is great with their hands and great with their mind. It's the best of both worlds. And like, Margaret is really that person for me, like somebody who she builds things, she knows practically what's going on, and like also her breadth of knowledge is just incredibly impressive from her years of just being a study.
Yes.
So that is really, I think, what I'd assign to her. Would you say the same, G?
I would agree. She is a crafter, and to me, the artificer class is the epitome of those people. She sews. Like, she can make full on like costumes that look like historical recreations. She just knows everything about D&D possible. Like, I use her every time I'm creating a character. Like, is this right? Am I gonna die right away? Okay, great.
Die. Is this a dumb choice or an in-character choice?
Constantly the debate raging in our party. But no, yes, I think that is an apt description of Margaret, especially with how my favorite story about Margaret is her Echo Knight character that she made. She found
the Matt, that's the Matt Mercer subclass that he created, right? Or
broken fighter subclass.
Yes.
Yes, and she found that loophole. She built a character for like a one shot with another friend group and exploited the hell out of it to where she like did insane levels of damage with one punch, essentially.
One Punch Man.
Yeah. Margaret, same character who broke my game, in which I let her have a gun and she would just take out civilians that just really weren't meant to take out, and I thought they were going to be good gatekeepers. And so really that's that.
Love you, Margaret. You are an artificer.
For better or worse. Here.
So the three of us, let's picture this party.
What's this party looking like?
A cleric, a ranger, and an artificer? That's not bad.
Yeah, I guess I could be the tank in the pinch. We have a healer, and
depending on subclasses, you can make up for a little bit of the damage, a little bit of the weakness. This is getting too dirty, even
this
for
is
me,
so meta,
dude.
guys. This is so meta.
We gotta cut this off before we just start the campaign here.
I know.
But I think those roles very much epitomize our roles in making the party, and that I was overseeing like a lot of relationships and hiring people and smoothing things out, if you will. And Tori was very much like, let's spearhead this thing. Let's go find these things. Let's go track stuff down. And and
I've gotta go hunt and gather all the things.
And by default, Margaret ended up directing. And so what is directing if not being an artificer?
Yeah.
That's the hallmark quote of this podcast. What's directing, if not being an artificer?
If not being put that on a cross stitch on a pillow or something in the house.
Y'all got merch. There it is. Sell it.
We'll share some things off podcast with you.
Oh yeah. That has been this episode of the Liberal Artist Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Woohoo!
Thank you both. This has been wonderful.
Thank you so much. If you ever want to come back, we're going to invite you back. If you have a second season, we'll invite you back. If we start talking about extra bullshit, we'll invite you back.
Happy to be here.
Yes.
Plug your show, plug your socials, do all that good shit.
Please watch the Party web series. We are at Party web series on all social platforms: TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. We are a 7-episode web series. Dropping
www.partywebseries.com to learn more about us. I am at Chancellor on all platforms. That is a combination of my first and last name, Tori Chancellor, CHANCELLTOR. Come find me, come have a dialogue about why Avatar is not an anime and why I would pick the worst optimized class as my sole character. God is keeping me humble in that way.
And you can find me at GKWillis6 on Twitter. I am on that sinking ship until Elon kicks us off.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. It's good VO networking, but it's a bad site at this point.
And thank you again so much for joining us on this wonderful journey. Join us next time when we just make terrible D&D characters. That's all we'll do.
Woohoo.
It'll be fun.
Yes!
This is a D&D podcast now. Did you know?
Yeah. I don't even know what dexterity means. Peace.
Peace.
The Liberal Artists Podcast premieres every other Thursday on your favorite podcasting platform. The show is hosted by Bodio and Kaylie Horowitz, and Andy Gibson. You can find the show at Liberal Artists Pod on Instagram and Twitter. Thanks to White Hot for performing the theme song Reflect, which can be found on freebeats.io. Now, I'm off to go exploring, and maybe, just maybe, I'll find a sheep that I can call my own. Good day.
You asked about Margaret and what her soul class would be. It's
right now, so
interesting
she can't defend herself.
She can't defend herself.
No, she can't.
I really see her
assigned class at birth.
A cab assigned class.
No, cut that.
Are you cis class?